Welcome, everyone, to Sea of Tranquility. I'm your host, Pete Pardo. You have dialed into Top 10 Songs with my special guest co-host, again, Steve Fleck. What is going on, my friend?
Same thing as a couple minutes ago, just
That's
different
right.
band.
That's right. Joining
Yeah,
us
man.
via Zoom from Connecticut.
Oh yeah,
And
sitting here sheltering in place.
that's right. We're all locked in and loaded.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about our favorite
Yep.
songs of Toto. And before we went on the air here, he and I were just talking about how hard it was putting together this list. I absolutely agonized over this list. And as I told Steve just a couple minutes ago, for me anyway, I know there's some people out there who don't dig Toto, and I get it. But for those of you who love Toto, you know that they've been pretty damn consistent throughout their whole career with a lot of great albums and a ton of great songs. And they're not a case of a band that put out their best albums first and then they put out a lot of crap afterwards. They've been putting out good albums all along, if not great albums all along. So this was really tough for me. Really tough.
Totally agree with you, Pete. Consistent all the way through. No bad albums. No albums with. Are there a couple of stinker songs? Maybe. Not many, and no bad albums. And like you said, from soup to nuts, from beginning to current, all really good stuff.
Yeah. And I do want to state before we even get started, because I know I did a ranking the albums for Toto, I don't know, a month and a half ago or something like that. And, we had a handful of people who were like, oh my God, Toto, I thought you had better taste than that. I think a lot of people really haven't heard Toto. They know those couple of hits and they may or may not like them. In most cases, they probably don't. But I got to tell you, the deep tracks from this band are just absolutely amazing. I mean, these guys could rock out. They could play the jazz fusion stuff. They could do the prog. They could play funk. They were great at writing pop tunes. I mean, they did it all. And it's like, I think so many people are kind of like skewed because, oh, well, Africa's been played a million times. I hate that song, or Rosanna or whatever. But man, they're like so much more than that. They're so much more than that.
I want to say that you hit on it. One of the major criticisms of their first album was that it was so many different things. It didn't follow one path. And so critics had a problem with that. That was, if you think back to it, 1978, punk, disco, I guess nobody had really heard a pop rock band just do so many different things on one album, so many different styles.
And do them all well.
Do them all well. Thank you. Excuse me.
Yeah. So you know how this goes, guys. We're going to we're going to rank our top 10. We're going to start from number 10, go to number 1. We urge everybody, if you're a Toto fan, to list your top 10 songs, your top 5, whatever. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer here. We all hear these songs different. And, a lot of these songs came at us at different times in our lives, mean more to each one of us individually than it might to some other people. So let's be open-minded about this. And as always, I'm going to let my guest go first with his number 10. What you got, Steve?
Well, thank you, my friend. I'll start with a sleeper. This is a track from their Fahrenheit album, which really gets no love, and this is called Till the End. Dig it.
Great song.
Very funky, right?
Yeah, I like that song. That's a good tune.
Horns, great syncopated beat. I remember, again, I could tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing. I was at my weekend job at the Elmville Library vacuuming, and I was listening to it through my Walkman because it was the new Toto album, right? Last album, Fergie, all the rock and roll of Isolation. They threw me a curveball because 4, Isolation, and then Fahrenheit, which was kind of back to a little more what they were doing with 4. And I was expecting a hard rocker. Then I get a new singer. I get this guy, and I'm like, when did Michael Jackson join Toto? And I was sitting there listening, and I'm like, man, this guy can throw it down.
Yep.
And just love that track. Love everything about it. I really do dig that. That's kind of my sleeper album too. So
cool.
What do you got, number 10?
And before I go to my number 10, I just want to throw a little history out there. So Steve and I went to college together, just in case anybody's asking how we know each other. And I remember that exactly. And that job at Ellenville Library, I remember Steve always would disappear on the weekends to go home and work. while I'm hanging out at college, drinking beer and going ballistic, Steve and I, because he was not around on the weekends, we did that during the week as well.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, I'm not going to be here over the week because I got to go home and work at the library.
Right, so let's get
together. Anyway, old stories, right? Old college stories. But my number 10, we're going to go to perhaps my favorite Toto album, Isolation, Stranger in Town.
Yeah. Go, Pete, go.
I mean, it's just memorable. It's catchy. It's rocking. Man, I love those vocals on that album. Ugh, that cat could sing up a storm.
Yeah, it's a great single, Stranger in Town. I think they had something else in mind for the single. I want to say it was like Endless or something like that from that album.
Which is a great song too.
Yeah.
That album is full of great songs.
Columbia just said, nah, doesn't sound like Toto because new singer, too rocky. And so they opted for a safer choice with Stranger in Town. And that was a pretty popular song. I want to say it made US number 30 I got down here. And the video was on MTV all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Probably could have been bigger. I don't know. For me,
it could have. Kind of stalled at number 30. I forget why. They did go on a tour, I want to say. Whatever. It'll come to me.
Yeah. All right, number 9. What you got?
Number 9? Number 9?
Number 9?
I got one that I know you love. And I love it too. And I had a difficult time choosing something from this sleeper album. The Independent 1992 Relativity release. Anyway, my number 9 is Gypsy Train. I just just that whole album, the Toto album that nobody knows about. But Gypsy
and should
they really should. It's just down to a 4-piece. Jeff Porcaro's last album with them. Just they unleashed Luke on that album, and man, is he a talent.
Yep.
And he is front and center from vocals to guitars to writing to Paige did a lot of writing on the album. But Gypsy Train is just something tribal about it. I'll never get tired of it. Extended guitar solos, typical Lukather craziness, runs with the whammy, without the whammy. Just, I know you love this song too.
I do.
Yeah.
And another little side story. So Steve and I went, and a bunch of other people went for a week down to the Jersey Shore this summer after that came out. And we must have played that album 50 times that week, right?
That was 94.
Yeah, it was later on, right? But that's,
Yep, that was 94, but
we were still playing it.
Yeah. That had a daily playing, I want to say. Yeah. And I remember by the time we got to the last track, we were just throwing things, like off stuff. It's so good, so heavy, right? That's the Kingdom of Desire, the title track right there. At the end, man. That album just fires you up.
It does. It does. Yep. We're going to talk more about that in a couple minutes. All right. So my number, I debated about putting this song in my top 10. And in the end, I was like, all right, I just had a hard time denying how much I really do love this song, despite how often it's played and how great it is. I just had to put in this list, and it's Africa from Toto 4. I had to put it in this list because even though it's so played, I still enjoy hearing it. I really do. It's like one of the songs that it comes on, every line in the song, you sing it like you're up there singing karaoke somewhere. And there's a lot of other like pop or rock tunes that have been overplayed that I don't get that feeling with. I'm like, oh my God, if I never hear this again, I'll be very happy. I don't get that with Africa. At least I'm not there yet. So I had to put it in this list because I do love the song. I do.
I agree with you. Yeah. Just superbly recorded, arranged, engineered, and just think, step aside from the crazy instrumental arrangements and choices of instruments and lyrics, but think about just the vocals, how great they are.
Yeah, they are. I agree.
Totally on there with you.
All right, number 8. What you got?
Number 8, I got English Eyes from the infamous Turn Back.
Yeah, I like that tune a lot.
Always dug it. Matter of fact, I like that album quite a bit. Like you said, very different for them. They were kind of going more for like an arena rock kind of sound. Had Jeff Workman producing it, who did some work for Journey.
Yep.
Remember a couple of those albums with Greg Raleigh. Those were Jeff Workman's. And really kind of pared things down, made them a little more simple, and got them down to a little more boxy, a little less mid range, and the results
worked again.
Do it, but I really like it. Yeah,
yeah, I dig that album too.
It's not their best album, but
no, it's not. But there's some really strong material on that album, I think.
Lots of musicals.
Yep.
And I just always have and always want Big English Eyes, man. It's and we'll get to it, but mentioning Bobby Kimball here, who I just think is I keep using the term underrated, but I do think he's underrated, even though he's been on a lot of their top 10, top 20 hits. People don't know who the hell he is.
Yeah, great singer. Yeah,
Toto guy, man, great, and he does a fantastic job on English Eyes.
Yep, I agree. All right, for my number 8, I'm going to go to what many people call their prog album, which is their second album, Hydra.
I know.
St. George and the Dragon.
Ah, yes, indeed. Love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that album. I know a lot of people back in the day were like, I can't believe they followed up that tremendous debut with that, right? But that was a killer album.
Yeah.
Hydra is a great album.
It is. Kind of runs the gamut.
It's got a little bit of everything once again, but I think the more challenging stuff on there is like, I don't know. Have you read the Lukather autobiography yet?
I haven't, and I just
you got to. It's really good. In there, Luke talks a lot about how the band was listening to a lot of Yes at the time they recorded that album.
Yeah,
not surprising.
It's funny you should mention that now, because as I was listening to a track from their latest album, Toto 14, I want to say it's Great Expectations. There's no surprise there. Very Yes, and very. I could hear the start stops from some of the classic Yes albums, done in a very tasteful and different way. But yeah, I do. I can definitely see that with some of the tracks on Hydra.
Yep. It's a great album. Absolutely. All right, number 7. What you got?
Number 7, we have another sleeper of an album. Tough to choose, but I chose "Dying on My Feet" from Falling in Between. I love that album, Death.
I'm with you.
Just, very proggy, very jazzy, very groovy, a little trippy. Just love it, man. Just what a great collection of songs. And "Dying on My Feet," I chose "Dying on My Feet" not only because of where it goes, but how it gets there. And to me, it just is indicative of how the band is as far as developing an idea. And they start out kind of slow, kind of back groove, and it just builds, and there's changes and there's harmonies, and then by the time you get to this blasting Jimmy Pankow arranged horn solely at the end, man, I'm jumping out of my chair. Not going anywhere at this point in time, but I'm jumping out of my chair into the other side of the room. I just totally dig that track, man.
Yeah, that's a good one, and that's a really good album. In fact, all of their latter period albums are. There's like maybe one album they've released like in the last 20 years that I haven't liked as much, but man, all like the last couple, really good stuff. Really
I think
good.
You and I are on the same page with that one album.
Minefields.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that album, but all the other ones really good.
And if you listen to Minefields, it ain't a bad album.
No, it's not. It's when you talk about all these other ones where we got going on here, it's like it doesn't quite muster up. And it's got too many songs, and it's like it's a little unfocused, but I don't know. Anyway, my number 7, we're gonna go back to that Kingdom of Desire album. So I knew that I had to put a Kingdom of Desire song in my top 10. I absolutely had to. And then I was like, which one do I pick? Because I love them all.
Yeah.
And I debated, and I changed the song that was going to be at number 7 probably like 4 times. And I had the one you mentioned before, Gypsy Train. And then I had another one. And then I had another one. I said, you know what? I'm going to go for the real moody, proggy epic piece on that one, which is the title track.
Title track, can't go wrong.
Because I'm just like, man, when I hear that, it gets me. Not that the others don't, because they do. But I think that one's got a little bit of all that Toto does so really well. I mean, it's got a nice hook to it in the chorus. It's heavy, it's moody, it's kind of proggy. It's got a killer vocal from Lukather on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just dig it. I had to choose one, and that's the one I went with.
Funny, because it came down to those two for me from that album as well. And a matter of fact, I initially had it in there. So,
and there's others, which I'll talk about in our honorable mentions. But I mean, that's there
are others? But that's funny that you and I came down to all the great tracks on that album. You and I came down to both of those songs. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's a third one that wasn't far behind too, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right. Anyway, you're number 6.
Yeah, my number 6. At this point, I'm going to go with what you just said a couple of choices ago, and that's Africa.
Yep.
U.S. number 1. You know, again, my chart positions don't mean anything to me really, but you said it all with Africa. And the thing here is, I mean, you really can't ignore a number 1 single, and it happens to be a great song.
It is, yeah. Whether it was number 1 or it never charted and never played on the radio and not, mimicked and done in karaoke and all that kind of stuff, I still think it's a great song. So as is mine, number 6, Hold the Line, which is the first song I ever got into, right? It's still a kick-ass tune. It is.
I'll be talking more about that song later.
There you have it. All right. Why don't you go right to your number 5 then?
So number 5, again, a real difficult choice. I'm going to go with We Made It from Toto 4. Love the track.
Yep.
Uplifting, great production, great Bobby Kimball vocals. It made it, people. Love the Lukather riffs. I love the Steve Fleck keyboard stabs, just great harmony vocal, just great. And how difficult is it to pull a song or two off of Toto 4 for this list?
Yeah.
Yep. Painstaking.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. I agree. All right. My number 5. All right. So again, before we started recording, I was telling Steve how my entire list could have been made up of songs from Isolation, which is my favorite Toto album. So I was like, well, you know what? I can't pick them all. I got to pick my absolute favorites. I'm going to go with the title track at number 5. I mean, those vocals, man, shooting to the stars on that one, cranking guitar riffs on that. It's just, but it's upbeat. It's fun. It's melodic, man. Just love it.
That title track is my favorite song on the album. That title track almost made my top 10.
Yeah.
That title track, I can't even tell you how many times back in the day, Pete and I, we go back to pre-electricity. I can't tell you how many mixtapes that song represented Toto on.
Yep.
Yeah. Great choice. Great song. Yeah. Awesome.
I dig it. All right. What do you got for another top 4?
Yeah, now we're getting in there. Surprise, but no surprise. I'm going to go back to the first album here, talking about You Supply the Love. Talk about supplying a great song. And, this was an early indication of what kind of band this was going to be. I remember listening to this album. We snuck off to Middletown from high school one day. And I always loved that song that you just talked about before, which I'm not going to say anything about just now. But it was on the radio and it was a rocker among a time, in and amongst the time when there really wasn't any rock on the radio. So I do recall, first spinning that album and you're in this, and then at the end it just turns into this like funky progressive. I mean,
it's amazing, right?
Oh yeah. They had me hooked at that point in time. I think that might have been the second song on the album.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love these guys.
Yeah, because they got the instrumental, the opener, right? And then it goes right into that. And the vocals on that song are killer.
And let us mention now that these guys, I said, who's the guy from Rochester, New York? We watched Rick Beato.
Yep.
He mentioned he was doing a Why Is This Song Great on Rosanna at one point, and he's talking 1982, folks. listen to these vocals. No auto-tune, no playing around with crazy effects, just great singing. And how great is this band been singing? And, vocally, how many amazing vocal performances did they do, especially with those 3 lead vocal songs that kind of made them famous.
Yep, absolutely agree. Very talented band.
Yeah.
Very talented. All right, what are we up to here? Number 4, right?
4, yeah.
I'm also going to go to that debut album, Angela.
Angela is.
I love that song. It's got that very kind of mellow, ballady beginning, and then all of a sudden it tears into that riff and that great Page vocal, and it's like, I love it. Love the driving into it. It's just, they save that all the way for the end of the album too,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. I think it's a real solid choice. I like Angela a lot for the reasons you're saying, and it's one of those songs that it gets buried.
Yeah.
It's the closer, right? Is it the closer on the album?
Yep.
Yeah. Gets kind of buried. I always was, and I listened to it over and over for a period of time, and totally agree with what you're saying. It's got something about it. It's got a quality. It's got a flavor, and it's got a great riff. And it's kind of up and down the graph. So
yeah, which is good. And they released a live album last year. I don't know if you checked it out on a Blu-ray too, and they played it on there at the show in was it Amsterdam, I think, and did it really good. I don't think I'd ever heard it live before, so that was pretty special. Yeah, pretty special.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, you're number 3.
We're getting there, man. We're getting there. Prize here, number 3, Girl Goodbye. First album again, man. That opened side 2, Here I Go Again. And it's a very proggy song. But Toto did prog, and I put it in quotes, but they did everything with such groove.
Yeah.
And I guess now is a good time to mention possibly my favorite drummer of all time is Jeff Porcaro. And could you get any better? And the bass, and anybody they ever had playing bass, obviously David Hungate, in the first couple studio albums, but the original bass player was Mike Porcaro. I mean, just simplicity at its best. And I saw a video of those guys. You've seen it on YouTube. They rip both of them. Mike Porcaro when he was alive, Jeff when he was alive. I mean, these guys had major chops, but you didn't always. Very rarely saw that. With Mike, I never saw that out of him. But I mean, the guy had it in him. But just laid back, play simply. But just a ripping Lukather solo. What was the guy? 19?
He was young, really young. Yep.
Whew.
I may have been younger actually.
Yeah, I mean, and all the experience he had up to that point. Yeah, I love it. Rips it up.
Yep, great tune.
You're number 3.
My number 3, the title track to Hydra.
Yes.
Again, kind of proggy, but really catchy. Really catchy. Love the piano in that song. Love the vocals, and the chorus is great. It's a very cool song. Very cool song.
Am on my list, and I couldn't
fit it.
No, I was back and forth. I was St. George and the Dragon. I was Hydra. Because I really do love that. I really dig the album a lot.
Yeah.
Hydra is the first couple, and maybe it's the album cover. There's something lost on the new generation, but when I think that album, I think fantasy.
And that album cover perfectly exemplifies the feel you get from listening to that album. You hit it right on the head.
It does. And so I'm in another world when I listen to that. And those lyrics, you're talking about Hydra, and where I might find the Hydra is in a familiar place, and Bobby Kimball delivering it perfectly with all the harmonies. And the piano fills. I guess it was Page because Porcaro, Steve variety was more on the synths, but I think I know what Page is playing. And just listen to some of those fills in between the verses that Page plays, 7th chords and real jazzy kind of stuff, and just all adds to a bizarre flavor. That's really a great album and a great track.
Yep. It is. All right, the top two. Here we go. Here we
Oof.
go.
All right. Well, top two. No surprises from me on either of these. Two for me had to be on this list. U.S. number two for them is Rosanna. What a great track. You know,
Killer guitar solo in that one.
No, there is, and that was obviously hit at the right time. I think probably what kept that off of number one was probably something from Thriller, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Which
right around
Toto
that time.
played on.
That's right.
Matter of fact, they were going out on the tour for Toto 4, and they delayed it for a little while so they could work with Michael Jackson. That's what I read.
Yep.
But Rosanna just has it all. I mean, it's another builder. It's expertly crafted, very well produced, incredibly well vocalized by Paige Lukather and Bobby Kimball, and just brilliant all the way around. And like to your point, I mean, shifting time changes. Jeff Porcaro's adaptation of the Bernard Purdie Shuffle. When he played with Steely Dan, and I'm forgetting who else. John Bonham, also the Shuffle in "Fool in the Rain."
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen the Porcaro clip on YouTube where he sits behind the drums and talks about how he kind of came up with that shuffle?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, it's something you'd like to check out. And I think, matter of fact, right around that time, his brother Mike is sitting over in the corner, just going up and down the scale on the bass guitar. There's Jeff like telling you how he put this beat together, and you're like, hey, yeah, practice much, Jeff? I mean, ripping these things off, and to have the memory he had. But I mean, just kind of to me like Toto's Roundabout is Rosanna, and that's what that does. I mean, it's all over, and it hits on all cylinders, and it just hits the mark for me for every mood that it creates.
Yep, no, I hear you. Great song. All right, my number two might surprise you, but then when you find out what it is, you might remember back in the day where I used to play this all the time.
Oh, of course,
Carmen.
Yeah, Carmen, man.
Carmen from Isolation, man.
Carmen.
Love it.
Great. Yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the kickoff song to that album, if I remember correctly. And that is what got me to fall in love with that album. Is just that song led into another great one and another great one, and I absolutely love Lukather's guitar tone on that entire album. I think, and the vocals just kill. What was the name of that singer on that album? Fergie, that's right. It's the only album he sang on. And I think he sounds fantastic on that album. And I don't know, man, it's just something about Carmen. And I think for me, and Lukather had a lot of great guitar solos on the albums that preceded it. But for me, and this is before Kingdom of Desire, of course, but for me, the Isolation album is his like guitar hero album, the first one, where he really, I think, showed truly all that he can do, even though he had a lot of good stuff that he did on the albums prior to it. But something about Isolation for me is just like, it's like Lukather's coming out party, so to speak. And it's just a great track.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's if Kingdom of Desire was Luke Unleashed, then that album was, Luke kind of breaks the chain, there. Definitely higher in the mix. I think that's probably the difference between those two, aside from the fact that the songs were a lot more arena rock, hard rock oriented, with stabs of classical runs and of course the usual Totoisms in the framework. But Luke was turned up more in the mix, and like you mentioned, his guitar sound on that album is brilliant, really. And it's really the first time that you got a full taste of, all Luke kind of all the time, not mixed down to the point where he's a texture, but really, driving the songs.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that Isolation, for me anyway, should have been a huge album for them. It really wasn't, but should have been. But what are you going to do?
I think what they did, and what I kind of alluded to maybe earlier when we were talking, or maybe it was at the beginning of our recording, but it was that they threw me for a loop, and they threw a lot of fans for a loop, because you had Toto 4, and then, with all that did and all that sold and all the hits, and then bang, they come out with this kind of like heavy rock album with another singer, and it just like, it doesn't even sound like the same band at times.
Right.
And so those of us who knew who it was, it great as it is, that took me some time. I liked it, but I was expecting something else. And
well, you were looking for that consistency in sound, and wasn't quite there. And quite frankly, I think Toto did that a lot throughout their career. They never made the same album twice, and maybe that, some people like that. There's a reason why bands like, AC/DC and so on and so forth keep that core fan base, because they basically make similar sounding albums over and over and over again. Toto never did that. Never did that.
No, and to go back to what, the album we just discussed, Hydra sold poorly in comparison to the first album.
Yep.
It was a disappointment, for the record company. It sold very well, but in comparison to the first album, not close.
Yeah.
And I think it was Lukather who was talking about it. Maybe it was from his book, but he mentioned, he was like, hey, we didn't want to do that again. We want to do something different. We wanted to change things up. We were in charge. We were in control, and I think you hit on it with that very point, and that's what happened with Isolation, and then they threw it back to another curve again when Fahrenheit came out, because that was a different album entirely.
Yep.
Good stuff,
all
man.
Right. The number ones. What do you got?
Number one for me is no surprise, and it's on everybody's list somewhere. It's got to be Hold the Line. Hold the Line, to me, like mentioned before, was the one bright light in a just very murky kind of era, music wise. And it was, I remember vividly, 1978, that song would come on the radio in the midst of like Donna Summer and the Bee Gees, right? Was that? I mean, was there anything else playing on the radio other than Donna Summer and the Bee Gees in 1970?
It was all disco. Yeah, it was all disco.
Yeah, Rod Stewart songs, and they were disco. Yep. And then this freaking rock song comes on WABC,
which is one of those songs you hear those first two piano notes, and then you cut the rest of it out. You know what it is, right? You don't need to hear anything else. You know exactly what song it is.
Oh yeah, you name that tune in a fraction of a millimeter of second. I always loved the song. To this day, love the song. To kind of quote what you were saying before about some other tracks, I mean, I never get tired of it. Never. I guess because it really hasn't become Freebird played out.
Right.
But yeah, just to me, that hooked me. Heard that on the radio, went to buy the album, and the rest is history. And I became a kind of lifelong Toto fan, and I still dig what they do.
Cool.
Pete,
my number one. Goodbye, girl. Goodbye, girl.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Again, that first album, it's loaded with killer tracks on it.
Isn't it though? Yeah. Goodbye, girl. Yeah. Again, all these could have been in any order.
Yep. All right. So, honorable mentions. It's a lot of good ones that I had to leave off. A lot of good ones. What do you got, Steve? Just throw a couple out there.
Yeah. Okay. Very difficult to put this together. Goodbye, Eleanor. Waiting for Your Love. 99. Mama. One thing I just wanted to mention was, I didn't pick any of them, but there's been some fine Steve Lukather penned ballads, right?
Yes.
And they didn't make my top 10 list. That doesn't mean I don't think they're great. Many of them. I Won't Hold You Back being
I was just going to say that. That's a great song.
Huge shit. I think it was at number 10. And, I'll Be Over You was another pretty big hit for them. I do kind of dig the song. I remember listening to it quite a bit when it came out in 1986. Aside from being just a great guitar player, I mean, just fine singer.
I think he's very underrated as a vocalist. Actually, I really like his voice. I really do.
And have you noticed, Pete? Many vocalists' voices age, but his doesn't seem to.
No, he sounds quite the same.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a little deeper now, obviously, but
Okay.
you know, he gave up the drugs and the booze and the cigarettes a long time ago, so his voice should hold up, and
Yeah.
it was still holding up even when he was in the midst of all that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many honorable mentions here. We'll have to do another program on honorable mentions. But what do you got?
I mean, I think you mentioned a bunch, but Georgie Porgy, Manuela Run off the first album. You mentioned '99.
Yeah.
The title track to Turn Back is
Yep.
great. If It's the Last Night, also from that album.
Yes.
What else? Good For You. I always like the funky nature of Good For You from Toto 4.
Yep. It's a feel good song.
Go back to my beloved Isolation, Lion. I've just debated over how do I get Lion into my top 10. Angel Don't Cry.
Yep. Yep.
You mentioned Endless. What a great song.
Yeah.
How about Mushango off the seventh one? I think that's an underrated track. I dig that.
And we didn't get into the seventh one because
No, we didn't. Stop Loving You, another one, right?
oh yeah, and to talk about Lukather ballads, my favorite Lukather ballad probably is Anna. I just think it's a fantastic song.
That's another. Yeah, that's another
Great Lukather ballad. Yeah.
Yep. What else we got here? All right, from from Kingdom of Desire. All right, so Gypsy Train, She Knows the Devil is that third song that I absolutely love on there.
A lot.
Yeah.
That could have been in my top 10.
Yeah, it's a great jamming tune. Jake to the Bone, the instrumental, killer. How Many Times? You know what? The Tambu album is actually pretty good too. I like Gift of Faith is a great song.
Got its moments. Yep.
I Will Remember, another great ballad from the band. Drag Him to the Roof.
Yes.
Dave's Gone Skiing.
I'm on my list right now.
It's like there's just so many great songs. Let's see. We touched on Falling in Between because you had it, but the title track to Falling in Between is great. Bottom of Your Soul, King of the World.
King of the World. Hooked.
Yeah, I mean it's just great. And then Running Out of Time from their last album is a killer track.
Oh yeah, and we haven't even really mentioned the tracks on the latest album.
No, there's so many good ones, and that last album is heavy.
That's a slow. You talk about Burn. That's a song from the new album. That album is a real slow burn.
Yeah, it is.
I think Falling in Between, I just immediately, from the first note, I was hooked. It was like bang. As long as the rest of it doesn't suck, and of course it didn't come close to it.
No.
It had me right,
yeah.
And From Soup to Nuts, just fantastic. 14 took me a while.
Well, it's a moodier album, and I don't think the songs are as immediate or catchy, but there's some really good stuff on there.
A lot of gems and a lot of hidden treasure. You just gotta hang in there.
Yeah, you got to give it time. Yeah, it's the newest one, even though it's been out for what seems like forever now. But,
yeah, we're old.
Yeah, I know. So, all right, cool. Well, there everybody has a lot of Toto to choose from. What's really cool is our top 10s were pretty different for the most part. A couple same tracks, but a lot of other different stuff, which is cool. And so many great honorable mentions. I could have done a top 20, and I probably would have felt a little more comfortable, but I wanted to keep to the format. So, anyway, Steve, this has been a blast having you on.
Man. We'll do it again and again and again if we don't run out of bands, and somehow I don't think we will. Dig the Chicago shirt, by the way.
What's that?
Dig the Chicago shirt, by the way.
Yeah, this is a good one. It's got the full band on there playing Kath and Company. I saw this advertised on Facebook, and I was like, I gotta have it, right?
I got it right after you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did. I was like, dude, you got to have this, right?
Cigarette in the front. Yeah, come on, you got to have it. Woo! Oh,
gotta have it,
great, man. Yeah, we'll definitely looking forward to doing this again, man.
Cool. Sounds good. I'm sure everybody will love having you. And so Steve and I will work on that and figure out what bands we'll do next. And in the meantime, everybody visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So for Steve Fleck, I am Pete Pardo. See you guys hopefully tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Steve, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Pete.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.